Most people spend their wedding day surrounded by flowers, champagne, and promises, but for Ryan, it began with mud, panic, and a pair of eyes staring up at him from a ditch. A tiny dog, bleeding, barely breathing, lay on the side of the highway like roadkill nobody stopped for. He was already late to his own wedding. The tux was wrinkled, the tie forgotten in the rush, and his phone was blowing up with calls from people demanding he just drive past. But he couldn't. Not when that small life was looking up at him like he was the last hope left. He parked his car, left the engine running, and dropped to his knees in the dirt. The dog didn't bark, didn't flinch, just whimpered softly, like she'd already accepted that today was her last. Ryan's hands shook as he lifted her. She was cold, wet, and there was a tag, but the name was scratched out. Something about that broke him more than the blood on his sleeves. By the time he reached the emergency vet, the ceremony had already started without him. Guests were whispering, the pastor was pacing, and the bride, she wasn't crying, she was texting. But when Ryan finally called her to explain, she didn't scream, didn't beg him to come back. She just said one sentence. And that sentence changed everything. It was supposed to be the most important day of his life. Ryan had woken up to sunlight spilling through half-closed blinds and the low hum of a nervous heart. His suit was hanging on the back of the bedroom door. Rented, a little too tight in the shoulders, but clean, crisp, and sharp enough to fool the camera. His shoes were polished the night before, sitting by the door like soldiers. And his phone, blowing up. "Where are you? Man, you better not be late. Your bride is already at the chapel." The text from his best man came with a photo. 3 groomsmen standing beside the limo, all grinning, 2 holding beers, one trying to fix his tie. Ryan chuckled, thumbs flying across the screen. "Tell her I'll be there in 20. Just gotta grab coffee." He meant it. He even whistled while locking the front door. But the universe had other plans. At the cafe drive-through, the girl at the window smiled when she saw the tux. "Big day?" she asked, handing him the lat. "You look nervous?" "Nah." Ryan grinned. "Just late." Then it happened. Coffee, Lapo. One shaky hand and a lid that wasn't on right. Hot, brown liquid spilled down his jacket like an insult. The barista gasped. He winced. But instead of yelling or panicking, he just looked down and laughed. "Guess I needed a little chaos." He pulled out of the lot with one hand steering, the other trying to dab at the stain with fast food napkins that did absolutely nothing. But he wasn't mad. Not really. It was just coffee. The day would go on. They'd still say, "I do." Maybe the pictures would catch the stain. Maybe not. Either way, she'd still be waiting at the altar. That's all that mattered. The highway was empty. That surprised him. Saturday morning, perfect weather, and barely any cars. It felt strange, like the world had paused for him. The road curved around gentle hills, yellow grass waving on either side. He turned up the radio. Some acoustic song about love and fate was playing. It made him smile. And then, he saw it. About 14 miles from the chapel, just past the faded green mile marker, something caught his eye. Off to the right, a small, dark lump by the guardrail. His first thought, tire rubber. Then maybe a bag, maybe trash someone tossed out the window. He kept driving. But then, movement. Just the smallest twitch. A slow, painful shift in shape, like something trying to lift its head but failing. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. His foot eased off the gas. Something in his stomach turned cold. He slowed, glanced in the rear view. Still no cars. 100 thoughts hit him at once. He was already cutting it close. He'd promised her he'd be on time. She hated lateness. Hated when he got distracted by strays, as she put it. But what if it was just stray? What if it was just garbage? And yet, something in his chest pulled. Hard. He turned the wheel and coasted onto the gravel shoulder. Dust rose behind him like a cloud of judgment. He put the car in park, hazard lights on, and sat there for a second, staring through the windshield. Then he opened the door, the ground squished under his dress shoes. Mud, of course, always mud. He walked slowly at first, unsure, scanning the shape. The wind picked up. His jacket flapped behind him like a cape, coffee stain and all. The thing by the rail didn't move again, not until he got within 10 feet. That's when he saw the eyes. 2 small, glassy oars blinking up at him. Barely open. Crusted with dirt and something darker. It wasn't garbage. It was a dog, a puppy, and it was broken. Ryan dropped to his knees. She was maybe 8, 9 pounds tiny. Her fur was matted with blood and oil. One of her back legs was twisted at an angle that made him flinch just looking at it. Her ribs jutted through thin skin like the frame of something unfinished. Her tail was motionless. She didn't bark, didn't even whine. Just looked up at him, eyes wide and quiet. It was the quiet that hit him hardest. Not silence, resignation, like she'd already decided no one was coming. He reached out slowly, murmuring, "Hey, it's okay." She didn't flinch, didn't pull back, just blinked once. That was it. He felt his phone buzz in his pocket. More calls. More people wonder where the groom had gone. He ignored it. Carefully, he slid his hands under her body. She was cold, damp, too light. That's when she made a sound, not a bark. A whimper so soft it was almost nothing. But it cut through him like a blade. He stood with her cradled in his arms, turned back toward his car, and walked fast. She didn't struggle, didn't even lift her head. Once inside, he lay her gently on the passenger seat and grabbed a hoodie from the back to wrap around her. Her breathing was shallow, labored, but steady. He pulled out his phone, finally, and called the bride. She answered on the third ring. "Ryan?" She snapped. "Where the hell are you?" I found a dog," he said, breathless. "She's hurt. Bad. I'm taking her to the vet. I think she's dying." There was a pause, long, then her voice came sharp, controlled. "You're skipping our wedding for a stray." "She's not." He started, but the words died. He looked at the puppy beside him. She was barely conscious. One paw twitched. "I have to go," he said, and hung up. He hit the gas. Tires kicked gravel as the car surged forward. The chapel disappeared in the mirror. Ahead was a vet clinic he remembered seeing on this road once. Open weekends, if luck was still on his side. He didn't know if he'd be forgiven. Didn't even know if the dog would make it. All he knew was he couldn't just drive past. Not today. Not when someone finally looked up and asked him, without words, "Are you the one who stops, or the one who leaves?" The mud sucked at his shoes like it wanted to keep him there. Ryan didn't even look down. Didn't care about the leather soles that were ruined or the pant legs already streaked with dirt. His eyes were locked on the small, fragile body ahead. She was lying sideways, one leg tucked under her, the other twisted, swollen, and covered in dried blood. She wasn't moving much. Just a faint rise and fall of her chest. Her fur, once golden maybe, was clumped with grime and engine grease. Her ear had a fresh cut across it, dry to a crust. The wind tugged gently at her body, like it could carry her away if it wanted. Ryan's hands hovered, unsure. You don't just grab a wounded animal, especially not one this injured. But she didn't bark. Didn't even try to pull back. She just stared at him. Big, dark eyes. Too calm, too quiet, like she'd already decided the world didn't care anymore. He lowered himself to one knee, barely noticing the cold seeping into his bones. "Hey," he whispered, voice trembling. "Okay, I'm here." Still nothing. No fear, no tail twitch. Just breath, shallow and weak. He looked at her leg. The paw was bent in a way it shouldn't be, dislocated, maybe broken. Her side had a patch where fur was missing, skin scraped raw. And beneath that, her ribs, so sharp they looked like they could cut his skin at any second. He didn't know how long she'd been lying there. A few hours. Days. Long enough to be covered in filth. Long enough to give up. A car sped by on the opposite side of the highway. No one slowed. No one even honked. Ryan's throat tightened. He reached into his pocket, fumbled with his phone, and called her. The bride? It rang once, twice, then she picked up. "Ryan, where are you?" Her voice was tight. Not scared. Not even that angry. Just annoyed. Like she was talking to a guy who forgot to buy milk. "There's a dog," he said, breath quick. "She's hurt. Really bad. On the side of the road, near." "Wet? What?" "I pulled over," he said. "I'm with her now. I need to take her to a vet." He heard her inhale sharply. "Ryan, are you kidding me?" "She's barely breathing," he said. "I think her leg is broken. She's so small." "Ryan, it's our wedding day." Her voice was colder now, sharper, each word like glass. I know. I can't leave her here." There was a pause. A long one. He could almost hear her blinking. "Then call animal control," she said finally. "Let someone else deal with it." His eyes dropped to the puppy again. She still hadn't moved, but her gaze stayed on him, as if she was listening too. "I can't," he said softly. Can't or won't. Ryan closed his eyes. The words swirled. The pressure built. I need to help her, he said. I'm sorry. She didn't answer. Not right away. Then, if you leave her and come now, you'll make it in time. I haven't walked down the aisle yet. Don't throw this away. Ryan swallowed hard. His fingers hovered over the red hang-up button. He looked down at the pup. She blinked once. Her nose twitched. She's shaking, he whispered, as if to no one. She's scared. She's so quiet. Ryan, she said flatly, you're choosing a dog over me. And with that, he hung up. The silence in the car was deafening. He took off his jacket, coffee stain and all, and spread it gently across the passenger seat. Then he looked down at the little body at his feet. Okay, he murmured. Let's get you out of here. Lifting her took everything. Not because she was heavy, she was barely 10 pounds, but because she whimpered. Just once. A sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep. Like a memory, not a voice. He tucked her carefully in his arms, cradling her broken leg. She was limp, like she didn't care anymore. But as he started walking toward the car, her head turned slightly, rested against his chest. A barely, their sign of trust. The car door slammed shut behind them. He started the engine, pulled back onto the road. The GPS on his dash still pointed to the wedding venue. He hit cancel and typed in something else. Emergency animal hospital now. Only one popped up. 14 minutes away. He floored it. Each bump in the road made her flinch. Her breathing came in soft, strained gasps. Ryan kept one hand on the wheel, the other gently stroking her ear. You're okay, he said. Just hang on. His phone buzzed again. Then again he ignored it. Outside, the world flew past fields, trees, road signs. But inside the car, it felt still. Fragile. Like one wrong move might break her for good. Then she made another sound, a tiny whimper. Quieter than the first, but this time different. Less pain. More as something else. Ryan glanced down. Her eyes were closed now, but her paw had shifted. It was touching his wrist, light, like a question. Or maybe, thank you. And in that second he knew. Even if the wedding was over, even if the photos would never happen, even if she never forgave him, he had made the right choice. He had stopped. And that meant something. The moment the car rolled into the emergency vet lot, Ryan didn't wait for the engine to shut off. He threw the door open, arms wrapped tight around the tiny body, and ran. His wedding shoes slipping on the rain, slicked sidewalk, his heart thundering louder than the squeal of tires behind him. The door slammed open with a chime, but Ryan's voice was louder. Help! Please! She's not breathing right! The receptionist didn't ask who he was. Didn't ask if he had an appointment or paperwork. She just stood and called back, code red incoming, as a tech rushed from the hallway with a gurney. Ryan lowered her down gently, his hands reluctant to let go. The little dog barely moved now. Her chest was rising but slower, too slow. Her tongue had a bluish tint. Her head lolled to one side like it was too heavy to hold. She was on the side of the road, Ryan said, breathless. Hit maybe. Starving, I don't know. I couldn't leave her. They didn't answer. The vet tech was already pushing the cart through double doors that flapped shut behind her. Just like that, she was gone. Ryan stood in the waiting room, heart racing, hands empty for the first time in hours. He realized he was shaking, from adrenaline, from fear, from the weight of what this day had become. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Again, he didn't check it. Instead, he looked down and saw something that made his stomach twist. In the rush, the hoodie he'd wrapped her in had fallen to the floor. He bent to pick it up, and that's when he saw it, a collar, old, frayed, faded pink, buckled loosely around her neck, and a tag. At first it looked blank, like maybe the engraving had worn away with time. But no, it hadn't faded, it had been scratched out, deliberately. The metal was scared, cross-hatched with deep cuts where letters once were. You could still make out a curve here, a line there, maybe a L or a B. But whoever had done it had made sure her name was no longer hers. Ryan stared at the tag for a long time. Why would someone do that? Why not just remove it? Why go to the trouble of erasing her? He felt sick. He sat down, hoodie still in his hands, and leaned forward, elbows on knees. The room smelled like antiseptic and something metallic. Blood, maybe. The clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have. No one else was waiting. Just him. And the silence. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. 20. Every time a door creaked, he looked up. Every time his shoe squeaked on linoleum, his breath caught. Finally, the vet came out. She wasn't smiling. Tall, mid-40s, calm face but heavy eyes. "She's stable for now," she said. "But it's not good." Ryan stood. "What's wrong?" "She's severely dehydrated. Malnourished. Obvious trauma to her hind leg. It's likely fractured. We're concerned about internal bleeding. We're running scans now. But there's something else." Ryan swallowed. "What?" "She's showing signs of spinal damage. There's swelling near her lower back. We need to confirm it with X-rays. But she might have lost some nerve function." "What does that mean?" The vet's voice lowered. "It means there's a chance she won't walk again." The words hit like a punch. Ryan didn't know what to say. "She's been through a lot." The vet continued. "Probably abandoned. Maybe even thrown from a moving car." Ryan closed his eyes. He could see it now. The way she hadn't even tried to get up. The way her eyes looked straight through him, like she already knew people didn't care. "She's lucky you found her," the vet added softly. Ryan looked up. "Can I stay?" The vet paused. "She's going to be under observation for a while. You don't have to." "I want to." Another pause. Then the vet nodded. "All right, you can sit with her after we finish the scans. It'll be an hour, maybe more." "I'll wait." Ryan sat back down. The hoodie still warm in his lap. He stared at the tag again. Someone hadn't just left her behind. They'd try to erase her completely. But now someone knew she existed. Someone had stopped. She wasn't nameless anymore. And whatever the scan said, whether she walked again or not, Ryan knew one thing for sure: she would never be forgotten again. The strings swelled inside the little white church at the edge of town, and guests turned their heads in quiet confusion. Bridesmaids adjusted their dresses, whispering nervously. The pastor looked down at his notes, then back at the front doors, still closed, no sign of the groom. Ryan's chair sat empty. Outside, in a world that felt a million miles from aisle runners and floral centerpieces, Ryan was staring at the pale tiles of a sterile emergency vet clinic. The only music here was the beeping of machines behind a half-shut door. The little dog was still fighting. She hadn't made a sound since they brought her in. No whine, no bark, just silence. And the silence, it hurt more than if she'd cried. Ryan's phone buzzed again, his best friend, 5 missed calls. Then a text: "Bro, where are you? She's walking down the aisle any second." He didn't answer. Another call, her sister this time. He saw her name on the screen, hesitated, then let it ring. She'd be crying. Maybe yelling. And what was he supposed to say? That he'd traded wedding bells for heart monitors and blood transfusions. The door creaked. A vet tech stepped out, young and gentle-eyed. She didn't speak at first. Just gave a small nod, like she knew what he needed before he even asked. "She's stable. For now," she whispered. But her breathing's shallow. "We're waiting on internal scan results." "She's a fighter, though." Ryan just nodded. His eyes were on the door behind her, the one that led to the back room where the puppy lay, hooked up to machines too big for a body so small. "She has a name," he said softly, almost to himself. Or she did. The tag was scratched up. Someone didn't want her to be found. The tech didn't answer. Maybe she didn't know what to say. Or maybe there wasn't anything to say. Not in moments like this. His phone buzzed again. This time it was the pastor. Voicemail then another. And another. Ryan finally picked up. His voice cracked when he spoke, like it had been buried under the weight of too many things he couldn't explain. "Pastor, it's me." The older man sounded startled. "Ryan, where are you?" "Everyone's waiting. She would have died." Ryan interrupted, voice trembling, barely above a whisper. "If I didn't stop, she would have died." There was silence on the other end. Then the line clicked. Call ended. He blinked. 1 second passed. Then 2. The phone lit up again. Her name this time, his bride. He took a deep breath and answered. She didn't scream, didn't cry. Her voice was quiet. Measured. Almost numb. "You always cared more about animals than about us," she said. "Maybe this just proves it." Ryan stood there, frozen in the hallway. The world outside was probably bright with late afternoon sun, but here it felt gray, heavy, like the whole building was holding its breath. "She was in the road," Ryan said. "Alone. Broken. I didn't plan this. I didn't choose this over you." There was no response. He leaned back against the wall, rubbing the edge of the scratched tag between his fingers. The letters were nearly gone, just faint impressions. He could almost make out a name. Maybe? Lila. Lindy? Another breath. Another moment. Then, click. She hung up. And that was it. The hallway returned to silence. A dog barked faintly from somewhere deeper in the building. Ryan stared at the door. She'd hung up. He didn't even know what he was supposed to feel. Guilt, sadness, anger, maybe all of it. Or maybe just empty. He looked down at his tux, mud-stained, wrinkled, a smear of dried blood on the cuff. His shoes were ruined. He looked like he'd crawled through a battlefield instead of walked down an aisle. And maybe he had. The tech returned a few minutes later with a quiet voice and a clipboard in her hand. "She's still not out of the woods," she said. "The vet wants to know if you'll stay." Ryan didn't hesitate. "She has no one else," he whispered. "I'm not leaving her." The tech nodded. "We'll keep you posted." He sat down on the bench just outside the ICU room, pulled his jacket around his shoulders like it could shield him from the weight pressing down on his chest. And then he waited. Hours passed. One of the nurses brought him a coffee. Someone else offered a phone charger. He barely noticed. His eyes stayed locked on the little window, where he could just barely see the top of a white blanket and the curve of a tiny, bandaged paw. That paw twitched once, and for the first time in hours, Ryan exhaled. Ryan hadn't moved from the cold plastic chair in hours. The ticking of the wall clock in the vet's quiet back room seemed louder with every second that passed. Outside the small glass window, the sky was beginning to shift, dark blue sliding into black. Streetlights flickered on, but inside the clinic, time had a different rhythm. It followed the slow, fragile rise and fall of a small chest wrapped in gauze and IV tubing. That little body on the metal gurney shouldn't even be breathing after what it had gone through. But somehow she was still here. He sat hunched forward, hands clasped tight between his knees, as if holding himself back from falling apart. Every few minutes, he'd look up again just to make sure her chest still moved. He didn't even know her name. Scratch that. He should have known her name. But someone made sure he wouldn't. Earlier that afternoon, one of the vet techs had gently walked in holding a thin manila folder. The paper edges were crinkled, like it had been shoved into a drawer weeks ago and forgotten. "We think we found something," she'd said quietly, careful not to spook the silence that had taken over the room. Ryan stood immediately, his heart thudding. For a second he'd hoped maybe, just maybe, there'd be an owner. Someone searching, someone desperate to find her. But no. The folder held something far worse. The tech opened it and turned it around slowly. There were a few scribbled intake notes from a shelter 2 towns over. Date exactly 7 days ago. Description: young female dog, mixed breed, approximately 6 months old. Found, tied to a shopping cart behind a gas station. Condition: muzzle wrapped in duct tape. No ID, no microchip, no tag, except there'd been a tag. Ryan remembered it. He remembered seeing it when they wheeled her away. Bent, scratched metal hanging from a collar that was almost strangling her neck. There had been a name. Once. Maybe something sweet. Maybe something someone had spoken softly to her when she was just a puppy. But it had been carved out. Literally scraped off. Not worn down by time. Intentionally removed. Like someone didn't want her remembered. Ryan stared at the surveillance photo they'd pulled from the gas station security camera. It was grainy and blurred, but you could still make out the shape of a man. Ball cap pulled low. Hoodie up, holding the small dog by the scruff and setting her down roughly behind a dumpster. She was trying to wiggle away, but she couldn't. Her face was wrapped in silver tape. She had no voice, no way to call out. It didn't even look like she struggled after he walked off. She just stood there, shaking, silent. Ryan's jaw clenched. He didn't say anything, just nodded once, then asked if he could keep the folder. The vet tech paused, then gently handed it over. "Most people don't want to see this stuff," she said quietly, "let alone hold on to it." "I'm not most people," Ryan replied. Now, hours later, that folder sat unopened in his lap. He hadn't looked at it again. He didn't need to. The images were already burned into his brain. The little dog stirred slightly in the cage beside him, a weak movement of her paw. Ryan immediately leaned in. Her eyes fluttered. "Just for a second. You're okay," he whispered. "You're safe now." She didn't open her eyes fully, but he thought, no felt, that she heard him. There was something about her, something he couldn't shake. The way she flinched at sudden sounds, the way her breathing changed when someone walked too fast by her cage, but also the way she leaned ever so slightly toward him when he rested his hand beside her. Like she didn't know if she could trust him, but wanted to try. He reached up slowly and brushed his fingers over her ear. The fur there was still matted with dried blood, but soft underneath. "They tried to erase you," he said quietly, "but I won't let them." He still didn't know what to call her. Without a name, it felt like she wasn't fully here. But naming her felt wrong, too. Like stepping over a memory he didn't have permission to bury. Someone gave her a name once, and someone else took it away with a key or a knife or something sharp enough to dig metal into metal. Not forgotten, erased. And erasing something takes effort. That's what stuck with him the most. This wasn't abandonment in a moment of panic or poverty. This wasn't someone who made a bad decision and left a dog behind a building, ashamed. This was personal, cold, planned. Whoever did this didn't just want to leave her behind, they wanted her gone. No records, no name, no trace. Ryan leaned back in the chair again and looked at her. Really looked at her. The shaved patch of fur along her ribs where they'd placed the ultrasound probe. The faint purple bruises forming under her white fur. The bandages wrapped around her legs and the monitor clipped to her paw. She looked like a rag doll someone had tried to throw away. But she was still here, still breathing, still trying. And that had to mean something. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old, bent dog tag. He hadn't told the vet he kept it. Found it in the trash bin near the surgical sink. Someone had probably tossed it aside, thinking it was too damaged to be useful. But Ryan couldn't throw it away. Even with the name scratched off, it felt like a part of her, like a secret she couldn't speak yet. He held it up to the light. The metal caught the glow from the overhead lamp. You could still see faint curves beneath the scratches. The start of a C maybe, or was it an L? Hard to say. But there was a name there, once. Letters that mattered. His eyes burned. He blinked fast. "I don't care what they did to you," he whispered. "I care what you do next." She stirred again. A twitch of her paw. A slow exhale. He didn't notice the vet tech re-enter until she was beside him again. She spoke softly, like not to wake the dog. "She made it through the night," she said. "We're not out of the woods, but she's strong." Ryan didn't look away from her. "Yeah," he said. "I know." There was a long silence. Then the tech asked the question everyone else had avoided. "Do you want to name her?" Ryan didn't answer right away. He looked at the bent tag again. The deep gauges, the forced silence. He closed his hand around it slowly. "No," he said quietly. "I want to find out what her name was." The tech didn't push, just nodded and walked away. And Ryan stayed in that chair, beside that small cage, watching every breath and beat and twitch of life. Not just guarding her, remembering her, because maybe the world had tried to erase her, but he wouldn't. Not now. Not ever. And somewhere in the night, with wires and bandages, and pain still holding her down, the little dog shifted just slightly closer to the edge of the cage, toward him, as if, despite everything, she still had hope. And that was enough for now. Just enough to keep going. She woke up before dawn. Not with a bark, not with a whimper, but with a quiet breath, a twitch of her paw, and the slow flutter of her lashes. Ryan had fallen asleep in the chair beside her kennel, his head resting awkwardly on his arm. The vet tech didn't wake him. She just smiled as she watched the little dog's eyes scan the room. Confused, groggy, but alive. And then she saw him. Still slumped in the chair. Still in that tuxedo from the wedding that never happened. The tie was gone. The baton was crumpled. But he was still there. Just like he promised. Her head lifted. Barely. But enough. Enough to prove she knew. Ryan stirred when he felt her eyes. He blinked, and for a second, he wasn't sure if he was dreaming. But then she licked the air, like she was trying to reach him through the space between. That was it. He stood up fast, knocking the chair back. His voice cracked as he called the vet tech over. She was stable, awake. In pain, yes, but fighting. The way they all said she might not. Ryan just stared at her, hands shaking, trying not to cry and failing miserably. He whispered, "You made it." The vet came in, checked her vitals again, and nodded. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. Everyone in that room knew what kind of miracle this was, but there was still one thing missing, a name. She didn't have one anymore. The tag was scratched, the file said. Unknown. The man who dumped her wanted her erased, forgotten like trash on the side of a road. But not anymore. Ryan leaned down, brushed her gently, and said, Hope. That's your name now. Her tail moved. Just once, but it moved. And that was enough. He didn't go back to the church. He didn't return the calls. The suit stayed wrinkled. The flowers wilted in the back seat of his car. But he didn't care. Because somewhere along the way, the day stopped being about what he lost and became about what he found. Hope. The dog no one wanted. The dog someone tried to erase. The dog who still, somehow, had something left in her heart to trust a stranger when she had every reason not to. He sat beside her one more time. This time without pressure or panic, just peace. The sun was starting to rise now. The light stretched through the blinds, striping the tile floor in golden lines. And right in the center of that soft new light was her face, resting, healing home. Ryan exhaled slow. I don't know what comes next, he whispered, but I promise you're not doing it alone. And this time, she didn't just blink. She reached out her paw, shaky, barely off the bed, and touched his hand. Some things don't need words. Some beginnings start exactly where something else ended. And for both of them, this was only the start.